We'll open up in a few minutes' time with something rather special. For the first time in the history of South Africa, we will see the CEOs of SA Rugby, of SAFA and of Cricket South Africa joined on stage together, where they'll be fielding questions, and we'll discuss the state of their respective codes and open up the floor towards the end for one or two questions that you might have for them as well.
There's been a slump in the team's performance, and I think that we have some challenges. And in fact, what's come out of that, our failure actually in this last year from our national team perspective, I think has led to our biggest growth. And that's really to say, how do we rebuild the structures of football at a foundation in order to provide us with long-term sustained success. And I think that that's the big challenge that we in football have. We got to get crowds into the stadiums in the league. And that's the challenge, obviously, of the PSL. The commercial revenues are great from the PSL side and from the professional football side, but from the development side, the national federation side, I think we have some challenges. We've set ourselves a goal. We've said that Bafana needs to be consistently in the top 3 in Africa, consistently, and in the top 20 in the world. And we've built the plan now to say, how do we get to that, which will involve in investing significant sums of money into development, and that's where we're moving. And then I think then you create a virtuous cycle, because when the national team is as successful as that, the sponsors are much more likely to want to associate with them. And I think, you know, cricket and rugby have that advantage in that where they compete within a much smaller number of competing nations, they are consistently in the top 3, well, usually, but that's where they are. We need to get there, and I think when we are there, I think it'll do wonders for the nation. It'll do wonders also for racial politics in this country. I think to have Bafana performing at that level will be a very significant achievement, but we've got to do that by investing at the base.
Your challenge is to improve the team on the field. Jacques, your challenge has been a little different. This year's been great, particularly for the Test side, #1 in the world. It's been very successful from a playing perspective, but as we're all very well aware, a quite challenging year from an administrative point. A new board has now come in. Things have changed greatly over the last little while. Can you confidently say to key stakeholders here today that Cricket South Africa is now in a space where, as a sponsor, Cricket South Africa is a product you really want to invest your time, your faith and your money in?
I think we've had a very long and tough year, and I think we're busy with a process, to use your word, in getting ourselves into a better space. I also think that it's quite a dramatic change in the governing structure, and we've had some hiccups of late, which we almost expect. So I think going forward, we want to have a governing structure where corporate SA would say we'd like to invest into this. I think the modern structure seems to tend to more independent directors on it. I think you've got to get it right, that you still have to represent sport. But if I look at the Carter report and also Nicholson and Wolf report that's been done in sport or in cricket, seems to indicate that there's going to be independent influence, and we hope that that's the structure that will make it easier for us. It's been challenging. I don't think we should be in denial. I also think we should have come home after the England series and not after Sri Lanka. We would have been heroes, but that's sport for you. Looking at Jurie, and you say what we can learn from each other is definitely, you can just teach us to win a World Cup, Jurie. You know, this summit would have been worth my while. But yeah, I think it's challenging, but it's also evolving. I think sport's actually quite a young industry if you think about it, so we can learn a lot from best practices in business as well.
If you can take the politics out of sport, which is almost impossible, but if you can manage the politics out of sport, that's very easy. And just to use an example, not that I deem them all politicians, but South African Rugby, in terms of our structures, we've got a very simple structure. We've got a council, meets twice a year. We've got an executive council, which would equate to our limited. They meet 6 times a year. They are not allowed in our offices. No elected official, president, vice president, any executive member is allowed in the offices of SA, unless they got the permission of the president or myself. they're not even allowed to phone the employee without popping an email and saying, I would like to speak to the General Manager of Development on development. So the moment you can get the politicians out of rugby in that regard, and speak to them when you need to speak to them on the strategic level, and actually on the events where you need their input, that's when you start driving a business, and you're probably going to get it right.
Qualifying for Brazil is very important. We've got a tough road because we drew our first 2 qualifiers, but you know, what I love about our new coach is when we played Brazil recently, on the way home, I'll tell a little story about him because it illustrates something of the kind of positive framework he has. On the way home, he said to me, Robin, we have to qualify for Brazil. I said, I know, Gordon. No, you don't understand. We have to qualify for Brazil. So I said, I understand that. What are you saying? He said, no, we have to qualify because we can win this. Now, all right. But you know what? If your coach believes that you can and gets the players to believe you can, it's possible. And that's a very different mindset. And that's what I love about his positive attitude. And I think when we played Brazil, we gave them a good run, and everyone said, well, they weren't on form. Well, 4 days later, they beat China 8-0. They've just beaten Japan 5-0, 4-0. So I think we had a good showing, and I'm confident that the team is on the rise.
Guys, you've given us some great insight. We really appreciate your time, and thank you very much indeed. Robin Petersen, Jurie, Roux, and Jacques Faul, please.